Our speaker today is Amanda Jones, Livingston Parish school librarian and founding member of Louisiana Citizens Against Censorship. Ms. Jones has been an educator for nearly 25 years and has won many awards. In 2019, her library won the award for top middle school library programming in Louisiana. In 2020, she was named the Louisiana School Librarian of the Year. And in 2023, she received the Intellectual Freedom Award from the American Association of School Librarians and the American Library Association's Paul Howard Award for Courage. Despite her many accolades and proven commitment to educating children, she has been the target of relentless online profane vitriol from right-wing extremists who are using her for their own political ends. But she has fought back and has chronicled her experiences in a book called That Librarian, The Fight Against Book Banning in America. I'll let her tell her story. Please welcome Amanda Jones.
Good morning. Please forgive me and all of my notes. I've been in Paris for the past week, so I'm not as polished. I'm a little jet lagged today, so I'm not as polished as I would normally be. So I was in Paris to represent the United States at the French Library Association conference. They call it La Bibliothèque de Congrès. But I went to represent the United States. They're very curious about what is happening in the United States with book banning and censorship because, as they told me in France, things that happen, what they like to call moral panics in the U.S., generally will affect them within 1 to 2 years in France. So they wanted to know about book bannings and censorship attempts in order so that they can mitigate what they see as detrimental to libraries in the United States, in their own country. Thank you so much for that introduction. Just to give you a little more information about myself before I start speaking, I am going to talk about, I'm going to give you a little background so that you know why I'm talking about what I'm talking about, that you know that you can trust what I say is true. I'm going to talk about Louisiana in regards to censorship and book banning, but I'm also going to go outward and talk about the state of the nation and what's happening across the United States. I am a school librarian by trade, now an author. Full disclosure, I am the voting member, the Louisiana representative voting member of the American Library Association. The American Library Association is, we are run by 180 council members from all over the U.S., and so I am Louisiana's vote. I'm also the current past president of the Louisiana Association of School Librarians. I'm on the Louisiana Library Association board. I am the school librarian chapter delegate for Louisiana for the American Association of School Librarians, and I am the executive director of the Livingston Parish Library Alliance, a founding member of Louisiana Citizens Against Censorship, and I am the executive director of the nonprofit Librarians Building Libraries. As mentioned, I'm also the author of That Librarian, The Fight Against Book Banning in America, which has been out almost close to a year. The paperback, it's in its third printing. The paperback will be out in September with an afterword or an epilogue. It's been praised by Oprah Winfrey, Ann Patchett, Judy Blume, Sarah Jessica Parker, a lot of different people, a lot of authors. But I'm here to talk to you about censorship and book banning. And I'm going to take you back to, I'm going to talk about Louisiana first. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about will also be upcoming documentary that will be out in October on PBS with the help of Independent Lens. It is a documentary called The Librarians. It world premiered at Sundance in January. And it is a documentary about the state of our nation's libraries that was created by Academy Award nominated director Kim A. Snyder and Academy Award nominated producer Janique Robillard, and it's executive produced by Sarah Jessica Parker and Maria Cuomo Cole. I always say Maria Cuomo of the New York Cuomos, but she is an executive producer, and so a lot of what I'm going to be talking about will be in that upcoming documentary as well. So Again, I have my notes. I'm normally a little more polished. Please forgive the jet lag. I'm going to start with the history of book banning in the United States. Well, not the complete history. I'm going to take you back to the 1950s when we had the Red Scare and McCarthyism, and we saw a lot of thought police and scares about what you could find in a public library. Fast forward to the 1980s. I don't know if you're familiar with Judy Blume. Judy Blume is most famous for her book, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret? But there was a little bit of a censorship scare in the early 1980s. And Judy and I have talked about this. She said, when her books were being challenged, her books are famously about girls and their young bodies. And so they were challenged because of those reasons. She said it was a different time, though, because now books are, not only are books being challenged, which is everyone's right to do so, but now librarians are being attacked for standing up for the books. When I first became an educator, I work at the same school library that I attended as a child. Been there my entire career. I have grand students, which are students of children that I taught, that they now have their own children. I work with, I have coworkers that I taught that are now educators. I love my job. I think being a school librarian is the best job in the entire world. When I first started in the early 2000s, Harry Potter, there was a big Harry Potter scare, that if you read Harry Potter, you were going to turn into a witch or a wizard. And I laugh about it now. But it was very serious then when I was a young educator, because I had Harry Potter on the shelves of my classroom. But what we saw then is nothing like what we're seeing now. What we're seeing now is an attack not only on books and literature, but libraries as institutions. It all began in the United States, this current wave, about 3 or 4 years ago with the Krause list, which is a list by a Texas legislature, Matt Krause, who issued a list of 800 books that needed to be banned from Texas school libraries. There was no rhyme or reason, and this was being pushed by Moms for Liberty. As you will see in a running theme, Moms for Liberty and groups like them, we have our own chapter in East Baton Rouge Parish, but also in Louisiana, we have a group very similar in their push for hate and propaganda called Citizens for New Louisiana, which I will be talking about. But they've taken conspiracy theories, they've taken misinformation, lies about librarians, books, and stories, compounded them with hatred and the use of social media to really do a lot of harm to our public schools and our public libraries. In Louisiana, it began in about 2018 with Drag Queen Story Hour in Lafayette Parish. It was mostly focused in Lafayette Parish, though. We saw millions in cuts to funding to the Lafayette Parish Library. Their board of control was overtaken by extremists. They have banned displays. They famously banned displays in Lafayette public libraries. Not even Cajun heritage displays are allowed because of the work of these, what I call a hate group. Fast forward to their 2025, they're still having problems in Lafayette Parish. Most recently, Lafayette Parish Library made headlines because they're in a lawsuit for First Amendment rights violations against citizens who spoke at Library Board of Control meetings. They are still overtaken by extremists at their Library Board of Control. There's a lot of misinformation being spread, and people often ask me about, when we're talking about libraries, about people that are spreading these mistruths, and do they really believe their lies, or is it all political? And I just like to say, these people cling to lies like rafts and call it critical thinking, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Now, we saw the spread of this hatred towards libraries into St. Tammany Parish, where we saw 1 or 2 women challenge thousands or hundreds of books in St. Tammany Parish. There was a targeted attack on their director, Kelly LaRocca, of their public library. We've even seen an attack on their funding, their millage renewals, similar to what we're seeing in Livingston Parish. I'm from Livingston Parish, born and raised. Been in Livingston Parish my entire life. Well, I guess technically I was born in East Baton Rouge Parish Women's Hospital, but I've lived in Livingston Parish my whole life. In 2022, I went to speak at the public library because a then board member, Erin Sandifer, who is now our parish councilwoman, had listed book content and signage. And I saw that the local hate group that had been perpetuating lies about Lafayette Parish was doing the same in Livingston Parish. So I went and spoke as a a resident of my community in Livingston Parish and a library card holder since I was 5 years old. My mom brought us to the library every single week. She's a retired kindergarten teacher. I just remember fondly going into the library. Back then in Livingston Parish, our branch was next to a washateria, and it was one room. And now we have state-of-the-art facilities that are under attack. In Livingston Parish, we have been going through almost 3 years now of attacks on our library. After I spoke, I went and spoke and gave a speech about censorship. I was targeted not only by extremists, I feel targeted by my local legislators. Not a month goes by, even including this past school year, where Senator Hodges, legislative aide, continually tries to get me fired at work. My former school board representative, who is now a state representative, Representative Kelly Dickerson, filed, we were close friends, and she said that I was one of the best things that happened to my community when I won National School Librarian of the Year in 2021. You fast forward to last legislative session where she filed HB 777 that had it passed. Librarians in the state of Louisiana could have had to be put in prison and serve 2 years of hard labor for attending an American Library Association conference. That was an actual bill that we defeated last legislative session. And it was nicknamed the Amanda Jones Bill. So I am very, very in the thick of things, and I know what I'm talking about, but it's been a continual fight. And what we're seeing is not just in Louisiana, it's happening all over the country. Things like, another example in Livingston Parish, there's an insinuation that there are sexually explicit materials in children's sections of libraries. That is not true. It has never been true. However, even though that is not true, we had a representative, Roger Wilder, attend a Library Board of Control meeting where he railed about the sexually explicit material and porn, and basically gave an ultimatum that if the board members didn't vote the way he wanted, they would be dismissed from the library board. And guess what? They didn't, and they were all dismissed. So we are seeing chaos and lies and misinformation all across Louisiana, but all across our country. Now, in East Baton Rouge Parish, before I zoom out to the larger issue at hand across the country, in East Baton Rouge Parish, we saw Mayor Sid Edwards after he was elected. He didn't run on a platform of stealing money from the libraries, but that seems to be what he's doing now. They are voting in the fall, and one of the most fiscally responsible institutions in Baton Rouge, the library, is now facing funding cuts because politicians decided that that's what it was going to be. In the legislature, the past last year and the year before, we've seen bills spurred on by Governor Landry's the Protecting Innocence Farce project, where he created a tip line where you could call in and snitch on librarians and educators who were giving children pornography and erotica, which, I don't know if anyone has actually ever met a librarian, but we don't do that. We go into our jobs because we love our communities, we love to read, and we want to give back. But from the way, our legislators and our governor have talked, you would think we were shilling porn out of our jackets and flinging it at children from every twist and turn. And that is just not happening. We are seeing a concerted effort to devalue and defund public and school libraries, not only in Louisiana, but across the country. So let's get down to that and what it boils down to, which, as you can already guess, it boils down to money and power. There's an excellent article that was just put out recently by journalist Danny Cherry for Anti-Gravity magazine. The article is called Citizen Pain, the Rise and Fall of Citizens for a New Louisiana and Their Chaos Campaign Against Louisiana Libraries. I was reminding myself of time. Make no mistake, this is a concerted effort by individuals with ulterior motives to devalue and defund our libraries. Their bullying tactics are being used. I know that the director of Citizens for New Louisiana has my photo on his desk that he changes out regularly, posts my address online regularly. A friend of mine, he posts her picture, he posts her address, he gives her license plate for her vehicle. We are librarians and citizens. We're also mothers. But my story is not unique. And you've heard me say it, and I'll say it a million times. This is happening all across the United States. To target and harass educators and librarians who stand up against censorship and book banning. Now, some people will say, oh, book banning is just a hoax. There's no books banned in the United States. That is a lie. There have been 16,000 books banned in U.S. schools since 2021. That is a statistic posted by PEN America. The American Library Association just put out their State of Libraries report this past year. 72% of the challenges that we are seeing are done by government entities and people from nonprofit dark money groups. They are targeting books by and about by authors and with characters of color to erase history. Authors like Toni Morrison, Alice Walker of The Color Purple. They are targeting stories written by the LGBTQ plus community with characters from the LGBTQ plus community. But there's several things that are involved here. You flash a page out of context and you say, oh, that's in the kindergarten section, like they did in the Louisiana legislature last year. A woman got up and continually said, this book, Genderqueer, is in the kindergarten section. It's in the kindergarten section in Jefferson Parish. I took my phone out and looked it up. It was in the adult nonfiction section. There are so many lies being spread about libraries. We've even had U.S. congressmen read aloud excerpts from books out of context that have nothing to do with congressional hearings that they're talking about. This furthers the attacks on libraries and schools. Now, the top 10 most challenged books last year, 9 of the 10 were by authors of color or from the LGBTQ community. They are trying to other historically marginalized communities and the people themselves. By doing so, they're othering the stories. They pass legislation to criminalize librarians. They use libraries as a political pawn to run for office. It was really funny because, not funny, haha, but funny, sad, when all of this started in Livingston Parish. It was right before parish council elections. And 8 of the 9 people that ran their flyers all said, "In the woke indoctrination in the libraries and in the schools." 90% of the people that work in our public library, and I would say probably 90% of the people that work in the school system are born and raised in our parish. We're not woke leftist liberal armies, how they portray us. I was raised Southern Baptist. I'm a registered Republican. Changing that soon because I'm just not happy with the state of things. The book ban hoax, as our president called it, is not a hoax. There are 21 books statewide banned in schools in South Carolina. There are 18 in Utah. And people will say, oh, well, if you can buy it in a bookstore, it's not banned. Well, I don't know if you've been around children or in a school recently. I work in a school. My students, we send 50 of them home with food for the weekends or they won't eat. They don't have book money. There's no Amazon money. They rely on the public library for their information. And our politicians, some of them, want to shut down our libraries. It's very hard right now to talk about libraries. People want to talk about, have these discussions where we can't get anything done without screaming and hollering. I'm here to tell you I can have a conversation with anybody. Parental rights is often talked about. I'm a parent myself of a child in my school system. I think every parent wants the best for their child, and of course a parent doesn't want their child to be given pornography and erotica, but that's just not something that's happening in our libraries. What we're seeing is an attack on funding, millages, like we've seen in East Baton Rouge, attack on the people and their stories all across the United States. And I'm here to warn you that it goes both ways. If we want to make our libraries, as Representative Clay Higgins said in a very famous tweet, that one day he wants all of the libraries to be controlled by churches. That tells you right there what the motivation is. They want to privatize them. But we have to be very careful about thought policing, because whoever's in charge now will not always be in charge. And you can't run a library based on who's in charge. Libraries are for everyone. They should be nonpartisan. They should serve everyone in the community. Everyone in the community pays taxes. Everyone deserves to have their stories represented on the books on the shelves in the library. And someone asked me in France when I spoke this past weekend, well, what about racist and homophobic literature? Does that deserve to be on the library shelves as well? And I said, well, I don't like it, and I wouldn't check it out. But your library serves the racists and the homophobes as well. Libraries are for everyone, and when I say that, I mean it. They're from the smallest, all the way to the book babies that listen to the story times, all the way to my 97-year-old grandmother who recently passed away, the grandmothers of the community that go to learn about quilting. Libraries are for everyone, and in our libraries, they hold the key to information and knowledge. And as Frederick Douglass once said, once you learn to read, you'll be forever free. What we're seeing right now is an attack on knowledge and history, because they don't want us to be free. They want us to agree with them and their ideology. And I'm here to tell you over my dead body. And so I've written a book about it. I've written a book about what you can do. I've written a book about what you can do in your own community and our own fights. And I'm going to wrap it up soon, but we're seeing this on the federal level. The Institute of Museum and Library Services has had significant cuts. They're gutting it, and it is the only federal institution that protects our museums and libraries. And Louisiana alone stands to lose $2.7 million from the Institute of Museum and Libraries being defunded just for libraries. That's not the millions for our museums in Louisiana. Our Librarian of Congress, Dr. Carla Hayden, who has been the Librarian of Congress for almost 10 years, famously overqualified for this job of Librarian of Congress, was fired in a 2-sentence email. Dear Carla, you're fired, from our president. Not a thank you for your service, not a Dr. Hayden. Carla, you're fired. We've seen the director of copyright being fired. These are attacks on free speech. These are attacks on the Constitution. And as I mentioned earlier, I was raised Republican. I'm still a registered Republican. But I was raised that the Constitution is the key. And what I'm seeing is that people are not, in my party, are not practicing what they preach. The Constitution is key. The right to speak is key. Freedom of thought, freedom of religion, freedom of the press. Mistruth, hate campaigns using the library for political gain should scare every single one of us. We need to speak out before it's too late. To me, that's what a true patriot is. It's someone who protects the Constitution and speaks out against injustices. Because since I was little, we said the Pledge of Allegiance. We still do at work every single day. And it ends with liberty and justice for all. For all. That means every single member of our community, whether they are a citizen or not. Free people read freely. And I'm just going to end on this quote by Amanda Gorman, who is the youngest poet laureate ever in the history of the United States. She wrote a poem called The Hill We Climb. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens, but one thing is certain: if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. I'm here to tell you, not only do I have my own daughter, I have 650 kids that I teach every single day. And I love all of them equally, And I think regardless of socioeconomic status or religious background or sexual orientation, they all deserve to be represented. Free people truly read freely. We must protect our libraries before they're taken away by extremists. Thank you. Ready to stay for questions? And I will tell you, I am willing to answer any and all questions. I have one caveat. I will not argue about individual book titles. And I am in a current lawsuit with Citizens for New Louisiana, so I will keep that down to a minimum. But I will answer any questions.
Tell us the status of your lawsuit.
All right, so she has asked about the status of my lawsuit. It's a defamation lawsuit. It's not a book banning lawsuit like they would have you believe. After I spoke in 2022, they said that I give pornography and erotica to children and 6-year-olds, and that I advocate the teaching of anal sex to 11-year-olds. So I'm in a lawsuit against these men that have defamed me. It was dismissed by the local judge, Judge Erica Sledge. It went through the First Circuit all the way up to the Louisiana Supreme Court. I won at the Louisiana Supreme Court level this past December with a very strong concurrence from Judge Hughes that said these men have alleged that I have done certain things, and they need to put up and shut up because they've alleged these allegations. It's on them to prove it because I haven't done these things. They can't prove it, and it is defamation. So we're just waiting on the First Circuit to rule if I even have a right to a trial. If I do get a right to a trial, it will go back to Livingston, and all I'm asking for is $1 and an apology. That is all I'm asking for.
Now, if our viewers share the same beliefs, how can they help join in on the fight?
I'm sorry, could you?
Yeah, of course. I was saying, if our viewers share the same beliefs, how can they join in on the fight?
Yes. So if viewers share the same beliefs, how can you join in on the fight? Well, I hope that everyone would share my belief that the library is the greatest invention ever. The written word is key. What you want to do is you want to attend your local school board and your local library board of control meetings. You want to vote. I will no longer vote for any candidate that puts libraries as a political talking point on their flyers. You want to, not everybody's comfortable going to speak out at meetings. You can do what several in Livingston Parish do. My parents, for instance, are Republicans, so they're red. I have friends that are Democrat, that are, you could say, blue. So we encourage everyone to wear purple to show that we should all be coming together for libraries and that it's nonpartisan. And so you could do as much, something like attend a library meeting wearing purple in support. Email your librarians. You can also connect with Louisiana Citizens Against Censorship, which I am a founding member. Our executive director, Lynette Mejia, responds to all emails. And if you are being attacked in your parish, please contact us at Louisiana Citizens Against Censorship, and we are here to help you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Are you aware of any school board or city council or library board that would have a policy that would allow sexually explicit material in their school library or in the parish library? Anyone have a policy such that should be done in the state of Louisiana? Are you aware of anyone that has?
So he has asked if there is any school or public library that would have a policy about sexually explicit material in school or public libraries. And the answer is yes. Every single school and public library has a policy against that. So we had the bill by Senator Cloud where there is tiered library card systems in public libraries. The thing is, you don't need that. There's no, and we might differ. Some people will say that, for instance, I'm going to use this book as an example. There's a book called And Tango Makes Three, and it is about 2 male penguins in the New York Zoo. It's based on a true story. It's a picture book. It has nothing sexual in it whatsoever. It's one of the most banned books in the United States right now. And the author, Peter Parnell, and I are good friends, and they're actually in a lawsuit over this. It's being taken out of libraries and deemed sexually explicit because it's 2 male penguins. Libraries and school, let me clarify. School and public libraries are 2 different entities. School libraries serve a certain age groups. So in my library, I have 9, 10, and 11-year-olds. Well, librarians have policies. So we have a collection development policy. So I wouldn't order anything from my library that's not professionally reviewed for the age range of my students. And you're going to find that policy at every school library in the entire state and the entire country. In a public library, it's a little different. Public libraries serve the babies birth to death. And so those policies are going to be a little bit different. But again, you do have those policies. And so you professionally review the literature. So it would be housed in, if it's professionally reviewed for teens, it's going to be in the teens section. If it's professionally reviewed for children, children's section, adults, the adult section. But the great thing about our country is that we can all voice opposition to that. And I agree with that. So we have something called a challenge or reconsideration policy. And every single school and public library has that. And it gives every single one of you the right to go and say, I don't like that book that's in that section of the library. And you can fill it out. And I agree with that and think that that's your right to do so. But what we're seeing is not an organic one parent saying, I don't like this book. It's political action groups and politicians saying there's porn in the library. They're not filling these forms out. When you ask them about these books that are in these sections, they won't list the title. But yeah, long story short, no, I went way off with that. But long story short, yes, every single library in Louisiana and the United States has a policy to protect children. Also, I would like to say, as a parent, it is your responsibility to walk around with your child in a public library. And public libraries all have age policies on age and unaccompanied minors and who should be allowed to be walking around unaccompanied. A library is not a daycare. As Governor Landry got up and said when he was Attorney General in the legislature 2 years ago, he said parents should be able to walk to a library and drop them off and think that they're safe. Well, I'm here to tell you that you can do that at every library, but it's not a daycare. If you don't like something, follow your children around like you should be doing as a parent anyway. Yes?
I would think that this is non-formal. So I would think that competition with the library would be the internet. Now I'm talking about for kids in school. So does the library have any type of programs going on to address that issue? Why you think kids, why you should be utilizing the library as opposed to just Google?
Oh, yes. Oh, I love that question. So he asked, does the library have any kind of information on why it's important to use the library, not just Google? Is that, I was having...
Like a program sponsored by the library to get kids into the library.
Oh, yes.
Parents into the library.
Yes.
So let me show you guys how to utilize the library in conjunction with,
Yes, and that...
the internet.
Yes. So AI is a big thing. So how to use the library. So that's actually how I won School Librarian of the Year for the nation, was because of my programming to utilize the community and get them involved in not only my school library, but the public library itself. As a librarian, we love to talk about books in our library programs, and we're always inviting people in. A lot of people have misconceptions about a school library. So as a school librarian, I will tell you I spend a week with every single English language arts teacher, reading them stories, showing them how to research, how to navigate between AI and Google and how to do real research. Alternating weeks, science, social studies, art, math, they will book for lessons like that to incorporate. But we also partner with the public library to do that as well. The public library, and as a school librarian, I can only tell you about public library programs, school library programs, but our public library, they're chomping at the bit to come into the schools and help us gather these resources for kids. I would like to invite you to my school this year and just come see. You'll see all the program we do. I love parents and parental rights. That's another myth that we're against parental rights. Kind of my whole thing as an educator for the past 25 years has been incorporating parents into the whole process. I love parents to ask questions and come visit, but we have so many programs in our libraries to incorporate research skills and the love of reading in with our programmings in school and public libraries. Yes?
So I would assume there's no sex education in school, right?
can only go by what I see at my school, and so we do have, as a fifth and sixth grade school, we have a program about, they're changing bodies that the school nurse comes in and talks about, but no, I can only see the pearl clutching that would happen if we tried to do that at school by my own senator and representative. I would probably be... The nurse can, she has to have a permission slip. And she's also targeted and harassed when it comes up for that time of year. We're seeing this. I look at foster care rates and, drug abuse rates and sex abuse rates. And in Louisiana, we're very high. And the way you overcome that is through knowledge. And a lot of the students that I have taught over my 24 years have come from homes where they have been abused. Books save lives. So we are essentially cutting them off from literature that will help them to overcome these things. I always find it ironic that in Louisiana you can get married at the age of 16, but they don't want kids to be able to check out a book with sexual reproduction. I don't understand that. Well, there's a lot of things I don't understand. But we want to get out of this hole that we're in with the high rates of foster care and drug abuse and things like that. The path is through resources and literature, but we're attacking the very people who are trying to provide those. I don't know if that answered your question. Anybody else? Yes.
My co-part here that asked an off-the-cuff question made me think. Do we have institutions still providing degrees and advanced degrees in library science where we, the public, would rely upon these people having quality education from an institution that we would feel very comfortable with? So, for example, does LSU still provide library science degree? And does it still provide a master's in library science that it did at one time?
Yes, that's a very good question. Do our institutions still provide education in these degrees? So LSU is actually the only state organization, university, school that you can get a master's in library science accredited by the American Library Association. As a school librarian, you can get... School librarians are a little different in that we have to be an educator, so I have to have a teaching degree. And you can take an additional add-on of 21 hours in library science, so you can get an add-on certificate at Southeastern and other universities, which is what I did, but LSU would be the only one. But LSU has a very, very robust master's program in library science. We need it. However, they've also been under attack at LSU. The librarians have lost their tenure at LSU. I know librarians personally at both LSU and Southeastern who have been threatened by someone in political office all the way at the top in our state for speaking out. And you can eventually, I don't know that LSU has a doctoral program in library science, but you can get it outside of our state. But ironically, last year, we had 9 anti-library bills in the Louisiana legislature last year, and the one that passed was the one that said public library directors in the state of Louisiana no longer have to have a master's in library science so that they can install pastors and people that are untrained into these positions over libraries. So that was the one that passed. I will say Senator Miguez slipped in an amendment at the very last minute last year in the legislative session to dismiss Library Board of Control members across Louisiana without cause. It was a bill, there were 2 bills in the legislature that we successfully defeated in committee. With bipartisan support, Republicans and Democrats alike said, no, this is not how this works. And Senator Miguez slipped it in at the last minute. But we sent in, as a coalition, 44,000 emails against the 9 anti-library bills in the Louisiana legislature through Louisiana Citizens Against Censorship last year. So someone had asked earlier about how you can help. You can send emails with us as well. Or come speak at the legislature.
amount of information on the internet is lessening in any way the use of libraries into books. And I've noticed that professors themselves, even at LSU, say that certain software doesn't need to be purchased at the university library because they have total access to this information. Are you experiencing that in any way?
I'm experiencing them saying that, but it's not true. I'm experiencing the exact opposite. A lot of politicians have recently said, oh, we don't need libraries. We've got the internet. We've got AI and ChatGPT. Some of our locals in Livingston Parish have gotten up to say that the library is bottom tier in our community. We don't need to have a library. It's bottom tier in comparison to the police and the EMTs. And I think it takes all of us to have a well-rounded community. They say that, but if you look at statistics, Smithsonian, I believe it was Smithsonian Magazine, put out a report that stated that more people have visited public libraries in the past few years than multiple years combined in movie theaters. So people are still using the library. People who love literature and knowledge and realize what libraries can do for them visit the library. It's unfortunate to me that some of these politicians that rail against the libraries don't even have library cards and utilize it themselves, or they might have a different opinion. But no, our statistics in Livingston Parish, just looking at their reports and things, library cards, the issuing of library cards, huge increases in audiobook lending, ebook lending, physical book lending, huge increase. Last year we had the highest turnout ever in the history of Livingston Parish of people who participated in our summer reading program. So I guess the old adage that, there's no such thing as bad publicity, it has helped the statistics. People are using libraries now more than ever. I would encourage people, if you haven't been into a library recently, to go visit. You can check out, I know my daughter has checked out telescopes. We have utilized as tax services, ask a lawyer services, book clubs. There's so many things beyond books that libraries provide, and people are using them now more than ever. So if you hear otherwise, that's a myth. Did anybody else have any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much for having me.